the run, swim, run, sauna, run workout. So I basically wanted to swim as well as do sauna, and I decided to run in between. So using running as the transport method. So I did 10 minutes of swimming in the river, and the river speed can be altered by basically going more into the stream and out of the stream. So I decided to add this additional 10 minutes of exercise to the otherwise planned sauna session on today Sunday evening, because I woke up and kind of had not necessarily too much energy, but I had a high training readiness. According to Garmin it was 75, which is kind of unusually high for me, and so I decided to do something additional instead of just going to the sauna. I also noticed in the last, about now 1 year ago, so in the last year, in the last 12 months since I started to introduce sauna to my training, to my weekly training, that if I just drive with the bike to the gym, and then so my gym has a sauna, and so if I just go there, then there is a benefit to sauna, I think. Now, there are, I think, two different sides to the sauna. The one side is the theoretical benefits that are shown in studies, and the other one is the practical benefits it actually has that are also somewhat measurable. And the main thing I think sauna has as a downside is the opportunity cost of time. So if we take, or I take time opportunity cost into account, then it becomes quite a complex calculation, I would say. And so I have been tinkering with this idea to again have it out of my schedule. But since I had too much energy today, so I decided to do an additional workout. I didn't just want to drive to the gym, go into the sauna and basically just sit there, with basically my body kind of flourishing in terms of energy, one could say. So I woke up and then I additionally went to the sauna. So I figured, instead of now just running to the sauna, which I sometimes do, so sometimes I run to the gym, which is about 800-900 meters, and back is about the same. So I decided to additionally put on top 10 minutes of swimming, as this will also reduce my core body temperature, I think, to a certain extent, at least after I already had ingested some calories. So after I ingest some calories and my body is also kind of ready to work out, it seems to be not very reasonable to then not use this, because this then ends my body in a kind of state in which I don't necessarily want to be, where I'm basically I want to move too much, and therefore I cannot really work that much. Now, of course, this is not a negative thing, but I think of this as kind of harvesting the body's energy. In a way, it seems to me that one has to spend a portion of the daily energy one has available to basically optimize health in the long term, but forgoes therefore the opportunity of using this energy for actual work instead of just basically burning it in workouts. Now, of course, there is work that is mixed in between us two, but this video is not about this. So I decided to do additional swimming. I swam 10 minutes. All of this accumulated in a Garmin load of 139, which I would say is quite high. So for comparison, I searched the run I did this morning and the run I did this morning. So basically it's now the evening, and I did this in the evening, but I slept during the day due to a shifting circadian schedule, one could say. Now, I did a 10K this morning, and I also tried one of the first times the Garmin running recommendations. So I tried to basically adhere to this, and this resulted in a exercise load of 66. I ran as fast as I could, but I couldn't really, also because I had an issue with the knee. So a Garmin exercise load of 66 compared to the 139. The running in the morning took me, I think, about 50 minutes, plus of course the changing cost. So the total time is exactly 1 hour and 1 minute to be exact. And then I have additionally the showering cost, and so in terms of the time cost, but additionally also the first time you switch into the running clothes. So maybe 1 hour 10, 1 hour 20. So in total 70, 75, 80 minutes. And now this evening I did this other workout, which basically one could see all of it as kind of one workout, even though I don't track it as one. And this resulted in a Garmin exercise load that was twice as high. Now, to a certain extent, one could also say this only could be as high, first of all, because my body was this ready, but also because I already had accumulated some fatigue maybe in the morning. One of the benefits, now discussing the benefits of this, one of the benefits is that I think it makes sense to try to already kind of work your cardiovascular or my cardiovascular system out before going into the sauna, because then you enter the sauna, even though I currently shower cold before the sauna, about 1 minute to 2 minutes maybe, so this decreases my body temperature. But if I now have an already somewhat depleted cardiovascular system, or I already did some exercise for the cardiovascular system, then I enter the sauna in a state in which basically my heart has to pick up at a higher level. So without this kind of pre-workout to the sauna, you just sit in the sauna and then wait for the heat to come, and then you eventually get out. But if you already have been doing something before, so often with these other sauna things, so not sauna things but sauna sessions, if I have a sauna session where I just drive to the gym, which I sometimes did, and I drive with the bicycle to the gym, and you cannot drive with the bicycle that fast because, well, it's sometimes there are streets in which you can drive fast, but also I have a problem with my gear system, so I currently don't drive as fast with the bike, which means the bike is usually, in terms of the exercise, not something that makes any difference, I would say. Of course it accumulates also, but maybe it's zone 1, it's zone 2, it's zone 3. I rarely have a zone 4 bike ride because there are also lights and so on and so forth. But if you're running, then in order to have a higher speed, there is more input on the body side. So one could say running probably requires more energy per distance covered, which is also why cycling kind of makes sense to cover longer distances. So therefore, if I cycle or I run to the gym, it takes about the same time because I have to go to the bicycle. I have to also take maybe my rucksack with me. So there are a couple of differences which kind of mean that both in terms of time kind of match. So because of this, it seems very reasonable to run to the gym. It is just for the overall simplification of the rule. If I go to the gym, then I usually just cycle to the gym, that I usually cycle to the gym and back. But if I then additionally go to the gym for a sauna workout, which then in my case takes anywhere from 15 to 45 minutes, but currently I'm averaging more on the 20 to 30 minute side if I do go to the sauna, because I recently actually decided to no longer do sauna, then the problem is that the exercise load that results out of this, which can also be seen then in the anaerobic as well as aerobic training effect, is just not very high. So therefore this combination seems to make more sense. I also in the last couple of weeks sometimes worked out in a way where I, after my interval training, actually went to the sauna compared to, let's just say, resistance training. After an interval training, my cardiovascular system is already hit, so therefore if I now additionally go to the sauna, I don't have to deplete additionally basically my skeletal muscles or my skeletal musculature, as well as basically tendons and so on and so forth with additional exercise, because I'm with sauna basically targeting the cardiovascular system kind of directly. Also without the cardiorespiratory system, because you seldom sit in the sauna breathing quite heavily. So maybe even more like on the heavenly side, but if I am in a sauna, I'm targeting mostly exclusively my cardiovascular system, which is also something that is quite a benefit, I would say. If I would be injured, for example, but I still need to have a high cardiovascular load, then it would also make sense, I think. So by having the sprint training, but also as of today, these other workouts, I think it makes sense that my cardiovascular system is then already kind of pre-worked out, and if I then sit in a sauna, the sauna out of all of these things is actually the kind of regenerational thing, one could say, but I'm still collecting cardiovascular benefit. So let's go through the different exercises one by one. So first of all, I did the 10K in the morning, which resulted in a Garmin load of 66. Then we also have the first run, which was 800 meters, which is to the river. River. Then we have here a Garmin load, so we have a training effect of aerobic, so AE, ANE, maybe for anaerobic. Let's just call it AE and AN, because otherwise I have to pronounce anaerobic so many times. So AE 0.6 and AN 0.0. So we have an exercise load of 8 here. Then the next thing is the swimming, which in this case is open water swimming. In the beginning I had kind of an issue where I also would track it on a Galaxy Watch, as I did in the last couple of years, a couple of swims in a small river. But Now it seems to kind of similarly to how steps track or estimate basically the distance covered. If I swim basically and I'm on the same position geographically, then it seems to still track the strokes and then estimate kind of how much I swim, which then means that I still have kind of something which is distance, which is I think quite useful, because on the first watch I had on the 6S Pro, I think this was often an issue. So now if I take a look at this here, so first of all I was able to run quite fast and swim. Also, I don't know about swimming, but I just did breast strokes because, well, I didn't additionally bring gloves, mostly for the idea that I don't need to think about having this many things. If I go additionally to the sauna, for example, I have to bring flip-flops, and if I run in between those, I obviously have to carry something with me, which is at least the sauna towels, if I then basically run back in my training clothes and don't shower at the gym. I did shower at the gym, but I then ran back in my training clothes, and since it is not that hot, that means that I now don't have to additionally shower at home, which would have kind of made the time cost a little bit too much, and also I would have showered kind of very often. Now the open water swimming resulted in an AE of 1.5 and an AN of 0.1 with an exercise load of 22. So I tried to swim as hard as I could. I also kind of sprint at the end, but there is also this problem that because it's a river, I either would have to swim basically at the highest speed the river provides me with, so the river flows into one direction, I basically try to swim towards this direction in order to be able to go into the river and out of the river at the same spot. And because I do have a bag with me, which is the bag I need for the gym with the towels, I then need to ideally go out at the same position, otherwise I would have to have my running shoes also with me and also swim with the running shoes, because otherwise I would then have to cover the distance, and since there are often bottles maybe lying around, I don't want to cut my feet open, and so this is partially an issue which I resolve by having the running shoes, which in my case are barefoot shoes, so it doesn't make that much of a difference, just on when I swim. And this was also kind of the resolution to how do I river swim after a run, by basically, and also bringing the time cost of this additional swimming down. So basically it's cold exposure in the winter, but it seems to make sense to not reduce the habit in summer to 0, because otherwise the habit seems to become too hard. And also if I don't increase the temperature slowly, as basically the outdoor temperature, I don't increase the temperature, if I don't decrease the temperature slowly as basically the seasons change, then it becomes mentally very hard to then convince myself that this is actually a good idea. So in terms of the swimming, therefore I swim with my barefoot shoes on. I also have my keys, which I usually have a Galaxy tag on, but if I have my keys in my bag and then I'm kind of, if this is the location and then I swim, but I'm actually kind of maybe 100 meters down the river because I cannot swim that fast. And so there are two main constraints with swimming, I think. The first one is how fast you want to swim. And of course now you can only swim as fast as the river provides you with the stream, unless you want to upstream, get out and then run back. But then also, if you go in and there is also already a current which you swim against, but the water is not deep enough already for normal swimming, then you end up with open cut knees, which is also not that useful. So basically I try to usually go into the river and out of the river, and therefore kind of manage the speed of the river, and therefore also manage my own speed. And yeah, well, so much about the river swimming. I then went and ran to the gym, which was an additional 800 meters. And this was a quite fast pace, which I could hold because my muscles, so the specific running muscles, had basically been regenerating for now 10 to 12 to 13 minutes. And so I was again able to run somewhat on the faster side, which I think is very useful in these circuit style workouts, where you basically rest some portion of the muscles, because if I want to hit my cardiovascular system kind of from an angle, or I can hit it from multiple angles and trying to basically get more and more exercise load without having to be constrained by local muscle fatigue, which in the case of river swimming, because I currently don't have swimming that much in my workout plan, or actually it's not existent in my workout plan, it's only these additional workouts I do every now and then. So because of this, my triceps, for example, don't have endurance high enough that I actually could swim faster, at least in terms of the breath stroke. And in terms of the freestyle, I cannot really freestyle if I don't see and also if I don't have goggles on. So this would, I think, increase the time cost and also the cost of thinking or setting something like this up. There is quite a little bit of thinking, at least on my side, that I have to input for something like this to work, and I already forgot my flip-flops then, but I also realized that I would not have to bring actually the hygiene bag, which usually contains body lotion as well as a comb for combing my hair afterwards, because I could run back from the gym afterwards. So basically keeping things as simple as possible, also because I'm running with a bag in my hands. So I did have this bag, which was only this big because I had kind of 2 towels with me, which I kind of split in the sauna, which also allows me to not have to carry a giant 2x2 meter towel into the sauna. So then the running was at a 5:10 pace, which is on the faster side for me. And in terms of the aerobic and anaerobic benefit, we have AE 0.6 and AN 0.0, and the exercise load is 8. Now we already have like 60 or 70, but I already did the complete calculation, and the complete calculation is 139, which is as high as it gets for a kind of workout like this, I would say. If I do, let's say, 15 minutes of assault bike, and I do have a good day, then it might be 110, 120. And so I would say that's kind of above average for maybe a workout that in total takes maybe 60 to 90 minutes. In this case, all of the workout took 75 minutes approximately, maybe 80 minutes. And so all of the workout is basically from beginning to initiate the activity to the end of the activity, which resulted in me again being properly dressed and so on and so forth. I then was in the sauna, and the sauna now was unexpectedly having a high aerobic as well as anaerobic benefit. So first of all, we have 0.0 kilometers per hour in the sauna, and now I have a AE of 2.1 and an AN of 1.6 and an exercise load of 56 for the sauna, which I think is now quite reasonable. Now a 56 is what maybe, I don't know, what maybe a 10-minute run, 15-minute run, 20-minute run on kind of the higher side would result in. It's also what kind of my morning 10K resulted in. So a 56 and a 66 for the morning 10K is not that far off. It is just that in the morning I ran 10 kilometers. And here I sat for 25 minutes in the sauna, basically doing nothing, at least nothing active. What also this allows me to do is to include a kind of a social workout, because whenever you are doing exercise, whenever I am doing exercise, the problem is that I am kind of my own trainer. And if I am my own trainer, then I also have to make sure that I have proper workout adherence. And so if basically I introduce other variables into this, such as walking around and talking to people for 15 minutes, then basically this reduces, in terms of a resistance training, for example, the exercise load that results out of this, because it seems that the cardiovascular load accumulatively builds. And so therefore, basically these are kind of bipolar opposites, one could say. You are either on the side where you try to train and you try to see it as work, or you are more on the side of, okay, this is just a freestyle workout where I also have kind of a social workout. Now the sauna provides a kind of way out of this with the standard or the default way in the sauna to just sit there. Now of course there's also kind of the unspoken rule, and it's very unspoken in terms of the sauna to not speak that much in the sauna, but it depends of course how many people there are in the sauna and how many people are talking in the sauna and what's kind of the social convention or the felt social convention currently. Now this additional benefit seems to actually be something that is quite useful, I think. Now not necessarily in terms of the training planning, but also in terms of the social function it provides. Now so I was quite surprised that I had a 56, because with the previous workouts in the last couple of weeks I did, when I did a sauna session, it was usually a singled out sauna session where I basically cycled to the gym and I also cycled from the gym home, but this does not have any or much of any benefit, and so it is just low cardiovascular work. Garmin differentiates between three different exercise loads. The first one is the anaerobic, the second one, so it's not the exercise load, but what is the actual name of this? It's the training load. So the training load is often split, and we have this split in between those three different areas, which would be anaerobic, high aerobic, and low aerobic, which you can see, but I won't change the... Oh, it actually shows it because, well, the exposure is reasonably low. So I would have actually expected that the high aerobic would have kind of increased now, but now, because this is now this is a whole month, and within a whole month, if I just increase the high aerobic load for one day, then that's not that much. But it seems to have added a little bit, and it has been very difficult in the last time to have a high aerobic portion of, well, my training, as is clearly evident. This is also usually what is missing. I am just not able, with the workouts I do, to have a high aerobic load. So what I currently do is 3 times resistance training, 1 additional resistance training. It could also be a bodyweight training or a HIIT training. Then I do have this one run, which is on Sunday. Then on Tuesday, so Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I do the whole body resistance training. On Tuesday, I do an interval training, which in total, with the rest periods, which each are 1 minute, I do have 35 minutes in total duration of the exercises. So I do 1 minute on and 1 minute off, and I rotate the exercises. And on Thursday, I had initially swimming, but I changed it to assault biking because it seems to be easier mentally to just go to the gym more often. And there is also an additional cost. I have to pay additionally for the entrance fee for swimming, and so it seems easier that I just additionally do the assault bike. Also because the movement is fairly similar, but I seem to notice that I kind of miss the swimming, which is the reason I introduced, at least in the last couple of months, every now and then a swim in the river, to not totally miss out on swimming, and also to not basically be on a decline curve in terms of my swimming ability. Now, the last workout then of today, or the last part or portion of this, was then the run back, which again was 800 meter, and I ran a pace of 5:25, which is also on the faster side for me, but I was quite depleted from now all of the workouts, and so I had in total now a IE of 10, an AN of 0, and an additional exercise load of 23, because it just builds and builds, and because now the main constraint with running also, in this case I think, was the cardiovascular system, where often otherwise the main issue with running is, so I live in an area in which there is not much elevation, and because there is not much elevation, this does not allow me to elevate my running training beyond the constraint of either not injury, but slight pain in some area or another, which then reduces basically the speed or my running form. But the other thing is that I have kind of local fatigue. Often it is the calves, because I run in barefoot shoes all the time, and I also walk in barefoot shoes, so I usually only wear barefoot shoes. And so I think to a certain extent that this decreases the effectiveness of running as a cardiovascular training in my case. Sometimes I do have a good day in which I can run hard, I would say, and fast, but these are kind of the rare exceptions. And now, because I therefore often run, and there is some constraint that is not the cardiovascular system, this means often that the runs don't result also in a high aerobic training load, which then means that the runs don't have, of course I'm still running, but if I'm not doing something like an interval training or an additional interval training just running, there is usually kind of the problem that I just cannot get my cardiovascular system up, which means that also it shows in my training, this also shows in my training data that my heart rate is just not high enough in many of the trainings I do. And this then probably is the reason why my Garmin cardio score has been decreasing now for quite some time. Now, the highest I ever got it was to 7.5k, and currently it has been reduced to 6.3k, and I didn't really know what to do about this. I could do additional stairs, just for the sake of doing additional stairs, but of course these are not really exercise, so this would be something that is something else. If I, for example, lived in an area where the next street or the supermarket was like 50 meters up and then down again, so if I lived in a quite hilly area, then I would have this just in my normal everyday life. But because I live in a quite flat area, there is usually, I have to plan kind of to get to a hill, and even if I'm running, and of course I can every now and then have a different run in which I then also include hills, which I did this morning, but it seems to be quite hard to, well, include elevation otherwise, and therefore one could see it quite easily as this. if I run up the stairs, then my step frequency is quite low, but my cardiovascular load is quite high. So if I usually run flat ground, then I have to have a quite high cadency or a quite high stride length in order to have a high cardiovascular benefit. But if you're just going up the stairs, then the elevation is what kind of controls the exercise load, and not so much the step frequency. And so I don't really know how to resolve this issue. And so my endurance score, which seems to be kind of a somewhat very useful metric for, well, my cardiovascular system, because the only other metric I have is resting heart rate, and this seems to be influenced also by recovery that much. And so it has been increasing a little bit, but 6.7k is probably still quite low. So my VO2 max actually decreased as of this morning because the run was not that good, and before I already had a 58, but now I again have a 57, which is the first decrease of a VO2 max estimate since I got the watch. Otherwise I was basically only increasing it, or it stagnated.